And this is the intro. Happy Halloween in three, two.
Hi, everybody.
Hey.
So, happy Halloween.
Ooh, spooky.
Thank you so much to everybody who submitted videos. Bonus points for the Halloween costumes. We were thrilled to see everybody's submissions, and it's very exciting because the more courageous, brave people that post their videos, the more examples that we have to show you and to talk about.
I think we were really pleasantly surprised by the number of submissions because the forward send out is something that I think is very near and dear to our hearts. It is one of the swing out favorites of mine. I think you also enjoyed as well, Evita. And it's something that seems to be ever elusive as we continue on in the Lindy Hop community. It's almost like a dinosaur of a step because it's just no one really does it that much anymore. So thank you for all of your energy and submission time that you've put in because it's given us a lot to talk about.
And
Go ahead.
Yeah, and so to go forward with this, we're kind of going to break down the construction, the feedback into two sections. The first section is going to be basically about the first half of the swing outs and how that operates, and then of course the latter half coming through and out of it. And yes, of course, it's a complete circle; they affect each other, but we're going to look at those halves in our feedback.
All right, so for this first half, going to be looking at a couple of different elements that we want to focus on in terms of what went well for some of you and what can be improved on for some of you as well. And those things include what we're calling or what I'm calling the ineffectual rock step, or how we begin this whole swing out. The squeeze, which is kind of that 3 and 4 transition moment, as well as for the leaders, um, how the pathway or the beginning ideas of the pathway for the partnership in this. Um,
And for the followers, specifically, there's a couple of examples where I'd like us to look at our swivel on count one. I know it doesn't really play into the moment of a forward swing out, but we do see the bleeding over effect from how we dealt with the end of it. And sometimes what's happening with followers is that their swivel on count one is a little tentative, or it's straight, there's not a lot of rotation, or it's a bit harsh or too quick of a flip.
hmm. With respect to the beginning of this, like how we start this whole process, that rock step we saw in a couple of you was really unclear or not as convincing or powerful as it could be. So the way that Evita and I often do our swing outs is that I'm initiating the invitation for Evita to come towards me on count 8 into count 1. So we were looking at what the rock step looked like for you as leaders, but we were also looking at the hand connection as to whether or not that was moving or staying stable as you initiated the rock step. So when we talk about the ineffectual rock step, those are the things that we're looking at. How do the leaders invite the follows to come towards them?
And along with that, also the direction of their rock step, because that plays into the pathways that the leader designs or sets up. And the pathways, being in the way or not, is going to affect the success of the swing out.
Moving forward into what we're calling the squeeze, or that 3 and 4 moment, it's really about how the leaders collect or receive their follows' energy and then redirect it to go into the back half. So the squeeze is something that Ryan Francois would talk about in terms of how he led that forward swing out. So we're going to look at the qualities that some of you have as to whether or not you're giving the squeeze, and if so, how well are you doing it? So without further ado, let's take a look at some of these elements. As a leader, I want to use my rock step to request that my partner comes to me to begin this swing out. And when we see something in your situation, Leanne, as well as your partner, when both of you are leading, you have this traveling swing out. Your starting position here is where that plug is on the wall. And and as you go through all your swing outs, you just happen to travel across the floor. So it's not necessarily wrong, but as a leader, I want to think of myself as more of a grounded, stationary position moving my partner. We can see by the end of all your swing outs, your new starting position is there, whereas the wall was there. And there were two other elements that I saw that contributed to this swing out traveling. And the first clue that I found was in this center hand connection, because that tells me when I'm bringing my partner to me. And when you lead your partner to you, it starts moving on count 2, whereas mine actually starts on count 1. And then at the end of your swing out here, I want you to notice that your triple step actually moves forward. So that's how you're able to progress across the floor continuously.
Something so characteristic about leaders is seeing the hips move back, and I definitely see Leanne's left leg extend long for her rock step, but I don't see like her hips pull back as much as they could. So I just have this diagonal line in her body. I would really prefer to see her hips move back first or more than her shoulders and her spine.
So Ryan, we're going to actually look at your rock step from a closed position. And the first thing that we see here is that you're going to take a step out to the side perpendicular to the direction that you want to send Amy. Whereas for me, I'm going to first of all step on count 8 to start the momentum. And then you're going to see me take the rock step kind of in a diagonal before using my triple step on 3 and 4 and my hips to start to pull Evita in the direction I want to send her for the swing out. Your triple step on 3 and 4 does more work to get around and out of the way of Amy, but there's not really enough stretch for her to feel that swing out feeling.
Very quickly, just a clarification on the idea of count 1 for the followers when they swivel. Um, we're going to see really good examples with Brianna, who's dancing with Ron, Leanne, and also Emma. And I just wanted to offer that with Leanne's count 1, it's more so about when and how her weight shifts onto it and where her hip placement or balance is, versus Emma and Brianna, who really just look like they have a very straightforward count 1, like almost very little rotation, or I don't see very much of a swivel because it's a rebound from the 8. And those are the 3 examples I just wanted to, have us look out for. We don't want it to be such a fierce isolation. It actually feels a bit more gentle and soft if you let your sternum, your collarbones, your rib cage have a slight honoring of the rotation of the hips. Yeah. And you might get a more comfortable swivel on your 1. It's sometimes on the 1 seems like her hip gets a little left behind, almost like she's sitting into it and reaching her right foot out for the step. I don't see a full commitment onto the right foot. You see how the left hip is a little bit sort of left behind there versus her body stepping onto the right foot, arriving in that balance and twisting. Emma, when you're doing your swing outs, what I'm primarily seeing for you is that on your count 1, when you swivel, you've got a beautiful opening up from the 7 and 8, but then your 1 goes in very straight to 1. It works, it's okay, but I wonder if you could explore more of a twist on count 1 as you're going back into him. What ends up happening is it just kind of looks like you go straight, and so we lose the twistiness of count 1. Brianna's killing me with some like confident style. She does her backward swing outs, her sideways swing outs, her forward swing outs. I mean, they're having a good time, and she owns it.
Yeah.
She looks just very in control and comfortable. One thing, if she wanted to, she could work on twisting more on her count 1, because she opens up really nicely on her 7 and 8, and then 1 kind of is a straight shot into Ron. And it's working out lovely and beautiful. But if she wanted to, she could try a little bit more of a sassy one. But
Hmm.
it doesn't bother me because she just looks so comfortable. Second thing about her is that she's got sort of like an uprightish, almost West Coasty posture.
Hmm.
And I like it a lot. It reminds me of Janice Wilson.
Hmm.
And she seems to me moving really well, but maybe just sometimes be careful if the shoulders get a bit too far behind the hips. But, it's her choice because it doesn't seem to be affecting her balance. Again, like she just exudes confidence and comfort.
So you can see a full description of the squeeze in our swing out lesson online, but really the idea is how we coordinate our hips and our arms to create that lead sensation for the follow to exit on the swing out, regardless of the send out. In this forward send out, what I'm trying to do is bring my arms to me. And here you can see I'm thinking about bringing this hand connection to my left hip versus crossing in front of me. So it really is all about coordinating the arms or the upper body with the lower body to create this lead.
Ren! Oh my gosh, there was one swing out where your partner did step in front with her right foot on count six. And I got very excited. It's about at 53 seconds or 55 seconds or so
Watch,
on
it
here.
happens right there. That's where it happens.
Okay, amazing. And so in my mind, I'm kind of like, whoa, what did you do to get her to do that? But then I thought to myself, and I was trying to remember from when we talked in office hours, maybe you were just filming yourself dancing and doing swing outs and you didn't even tell her what the goal or the exercise was. In which case, I'm wondering, is she in a muscle memory habit with her hip and her right foot that she's just always turning herself and stepping behind herself on count six? I would love it if you guys watched this again or maybe show her this video. Maybe she just wasn't even aware that she was always crossing behind. But I got so excited when I saw that one moment. And then Michael and I were kind of like, what did Bren do in that one moment because she crosses in front? That's a forward swing out.
So Ren, I want you to notice something very specific that kind of helps or hinders this squeeze. And that is really this step on count five. In the side by side, I want you to notice that where your step is compared to where my step is as it relates to not only myself but my partner. Speaking of partners, you can also see Evita is still facing forward, whereas yours is already rotated or facing you. If we take a look at this from the other perspective, I want you to notice your posture here, because as you take that step, you're really leaning to the side as if you're trying to get out of your partner's way. And as we talked about in London, it's not necessary for you to do such hard work in this moment of getting out of your partner's way. The hook itself isn't bad, but really what you need to do is coordinate that step on five with the triple step that came before. So we're looking for these hips right here to pull in the direction that you want to send your partner versus simply just trying to get out of your partner's way. Now what we have here, Achim, is something that is quite common for younger leaders, and it's actually something that I used to have in my swing out as well. And what that is specifically is a step forward on count five right here, versus stepping behind ourselves, either in a straight line or hooking. And what that means is that you're not coordinating your triple step and your hips with the send out. So as you can see right here, your triple step is going to go around Martina and then straight forward, which means you're relying only on your arms, and that's going to be a less comfortable swing out position for her. And speaking of hip movement, we're going to now take a look at Chris and Lucy. And Chris, I'll say that your squeeze looks really clear and great, so I was pleased with that, but there was something else that wasn't quite right. And upon further inspection, I think it's your posture. Now right here, you start with a beautiful angle in your body that looks like it's going to set up, but then as you move through, see how upright you become as you move into that count five. And what that means is that when you give Lucy this squeeze, it's coming only from your upper body. Because this hook behind right here, you work so hard to get out of her way that you're not coordinating your hips or sitting away to pull into count five. All right, so now what we're going to do is take a look at the back half of the swing out and some of the problem areas that we've noticed. First and foremost, for the leaders, is what we're calling this crotch swipe. Actually, Jenny has a more blue term for it, shall I say, which we won't share here, but it is something that we do see often as the solution that leaders try to implement when doing a forward send out. And we know it so well that we even addressed it in our setup video for this challenge, and yet still some of you can't help but do it. Maybe we weren't clear, but in saying that we do not want that to be the solution. So we're going to take a look at
And
that crotch swipe.
you're talking about the moment of like count four going through to count five where the leader's left hand is passing in front of the body versus staying on the left side of the body.
Thank you for clarifying that. Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. You're so good. You're so good.
Sometimes.
We'll also take a look more in depth about kind of the pathways that we envision for the leader and the follower through the swing out. This isn't necessarily explicit for a forward send out, but it is something that will make this style that much easier. So we'll take a look at some of the couples who do it well and illustrate what we're talking about there.
Cool. I think for the followers on the second half of the swing out, one of the hardest elements is this count six. It's the moment when the follower's right foot should be crossing in front of the body or between the partnership versus stepping behind. We're going to see a couple of examples where follows just have a very strong muscle memory habit, and it's hard for them to get that moment. It's always hard to tell if it's the followers kind of like slipping back into their old habits, or if the leaders really didn't communicate the forward send out, or if it's an artistic choice. But for this challenge, that was like a pivotal, really, really important moment, the right foot crossing in front on count six for the follows. That being said, also, sometimes counts five and six can seem very large or too big. I think psychologically it's about the follows thinking, it's a forward swing up, so I gotta go forward. And what ends up happening is then the distance between us is a bit too big, or worse and more uncomfortably, the follow seems to arrive at the end of the swing out too quickly. And then that gives us the kind of sharp, rougher turnaround. Like all of a sudden you're facing this way and then you face this way. Something that we're going to take a look at as good examples and also not so great examples is the speed of rotation in the follower's sternum and shoulders. How does a follower pace out those steps? Where are they looking? And when and where and how is that gradual turn that should kind of take place over 6, 7, and 8 into 1? Let's see. We also, because of this difficult moment of count 6 and the kind of positioning of the head and shoulders, we also sometimes can see a frame that is a bit broken or strained in the right shoulder of the follower. And I think those are my notes for the latter half of the swing out.
That sounds great. So there's a lot of words. Now let's put some visuals to all those words, huh? Let's take a look. So this is a bad habit or a byproduct of bad technique with respect to the squeeze. And as you can see, as I bring my hand to my hip, on count 5, the hand connection is still visible, and when it doesn't go well, then we bring the hand connection across our waist. So Ryan, this is a fairly easy one to diagnose, and again, we're looking at this hand connection and what it does going into count 5. As we can see in all of your swing outs, as you step into count 5, this hand connection is gone, and as further evidence, we can see the hand connection pop up on the other side. And not only is this bad for you, but you can see what it does to Amy's frame here. It kind of breaks it in an awkward position. So please take a look at that, and I'd say, if anything, that's your biggest area to address. And here we have Ron. Again, it's the same situation, and we're just seeing it from a different angle here, that you can see the hand peeking through as you step into count 5 versus being hidden behind you because you're bringing it to your left hip. So It is a muscle memory thing that you'll just need to work on and address so that you develop a new muscle memory. The other thing that I think is of interest is that if we take a zoom in, look at like your arms are in this position, so you're all pretzeled up and twisting around Brianna, which is not a positive experience for the follows as well in this swing out variation. So keep practicing and really focus on that moment. So outside of the pathways that we will discuss now, one of the check-in moments we have is on count 4, where Evita can see over my right shoulder and I can see over hers, versus us being squared off. It's just one check-in moment among many that we'll take, so let's take a look at all the details here. So we're going to take a look at the pathways that we've been talking about all video, and Pam and Les are going to be the ones that we use to demonstrate this idea that for the follows there's an in track and an out track, and the triple steps on 3 and 4 and 7 and 8 are what the follow will use to jump from one track to the other. Ideally, it's somewhat of an elliptical idea versus walking on one straight or single line for the follows. There's always a little bit of nuance to this, but that's the general idea that we're operating from. Now that's a little bit different for the leads, because what the leads are doing is usually using the rock step on 1, 2 to get off the follows track, and then we use the 3 and 4 to readjust, and then 5, 6 again gets off of the follows out track, and then the triple step on 7 and 8 readjusts or realigns us. So if we take a look at those two pathways together, we see that they're similar but somewhat different. And that's always negotiable, of course, with any swing out that we do, but that's the general idea that Evita and I are operating on when we do our swing outs. And how well you align these two pathways up determines how easy a swing out can be when dancing. Now, we actually think that Juan and Emma's pathways are pretty good, but there is one moment for Juan that I'd like you to notice, which is this step across here with your right foot on count 7. There's nothing wrong with doing that one, but I'll just let you know that the way that I do my triple step for the 7 and 8, I've actually stepped behind myself with the right foot, and that opens up my right shoulder to create the stretch for each subsequent swing out. So take a look at that and maybe try that to see how that feels as well. And Steph, I thought you did a really nice job with this as well. Everything about the stretch, the squeeze, your rock step looks really clear, but I do want you to notice one thing about how you get into your squared off position. Right there, I just want you to see that your foot angle is kind of here, and with your tailbone pulling kind of towards that couch there. So what that means is that you're not quite squared off. So when you go to take your step on count 5, you have a big old hook behind here to make sure that you get off of Rhonda's pathway. So again, take a look at count 4 as an isolated moment to see if you can see over Rhonda's right shoulder and she can see over your right shoulder. Now, Steve and Justa, we're going to take a look at a couple of details, but the first thing I want you to notice is the beginning angle that you do your swing outs on, where you're sending Justa kind of to the end of that island and you're starting over by your dining room tables. You do several swing outs in a row, which is great, but what that allows us to see is that by the time you get to this final swing out right here, I just want you to see now that this is the angle you're swinging out on versus what you had started at, which is a little bit more in this direction. So what that means is that you're under rotating the swing out. So we're going to look at a couple of reasons why that is happening.
So, Justa, your 3 and 4, when you come into the swing out, is not really getting into a solid place. And primarily it's because we have a very rounded shape in your swing outs. There's not sort of clear lines in which Justa can go down and Steve gets out of the way. So the result is that it's kind of like becoming a blobby, rounded shape that sometimes doesn't cleanly make it all the way comfortably around. And then specifically on the 5-6 or from 4-5-6, it looks like Justa has to almost go around Steven because he's not really giving her a direct line to go through. Justa, another thing that I'm seeing almost on every single swing out is that your right foot, even if your heart and your sternum is going out forward, your right foot on count 6 is still crossing behind you. And I wonder if that's a muscle memory thing or if we can just practice a few more. Have your right foot cross in front. You kind of have like you automatically sort of rotate your hips a lot. You even did sort of a camel walk. And it's cute, but I just want to make sure that your right foot can cross in front of you comfortably for your forward swing outs. Lucy, I would request that there's a softer head turn and actually a twist in your body on count 6, which sort of flirts back towards Chris. You do it if we look at your vertical video. The first swing out that you do is a little softer. The second one, you definitely have a twisty moment where you look back at Chris. And that's what I would want you to do more often versus a harsh forward and then flip around. And like I said, count 6, the twisting moment, is the best opportunity for that. For Martina, her count 6, when she crosses over with her right foot, it just seems very, very far away from Akim. And I'm not sure if that's because her step is larger than it needs to be, or if it's because he moves or contrasts her a lot. But basically, on their 5 and 6, they just get very far away from each other. This also, for Martina, makes it difficult. It looks like she is too forcefully looking and facing in a forwards direction. So this can lead to a bit of strain on her right shoulder, maybe. We see the frame breaking maybe a bit more than we'd like for it to. And it gives an early arrival to the end of the swing out. And then it can make for sort of an abrupt turnaround. This is a really good example of how I would like for the transition between 8 and 1 to be a little bit more gradual. Basically like a soft rounding out on the 7 and 8 and 1. It's like I want to see the whole body come around gradually versus a moment of this way and then that way.
And Rhonda, it's going to be the same note for you as well regarding your triple step on 7 and 8. You can see right here that as you step on 7, you make such a fast snap around to face Steph. And so I think what that means is that you can take your steps 5 and 6 a little bit more, maybe smaller even, so that you don't arrive to that triple step so quickly.
So thanks again, everybody. Really, we just can't tell you how exciting it is and how much we appreciate when you guys try out these member challenges and submit your videos. It's really, really fun to see all of you guys.
A big shout out to Leanne and her partner, David and Amy, Martina, Ahim, Pam, Les, Chris, Lucy, Ren, Ron, Brianna. It's great to see you. We've heard a lot about you. Steph and Rhonda, as always. Yusta and Steve, new to this whole thing, so welcome to you.
Yeah.
That was great. Juan and Emma, Ryan. Thanks for hopping in, Mr. Pirate, and doing your thing. It was really encouraging, like we said at the beginning, to see all of you give this a go, and hopefully you'll take these notes and make little improvements day by day, so it feels better to do a forward swing out.
Yeah. What we're going to do, guys, is so this was our October member challenge. Here we are midway through November. So here's the feedback. We're actually going to wait until December to give a new challenge to you guys. And then most likely we'll have the results of that challenge for you in January 2020. Also, Michael and I right now, we're going to be concluding our fall certificate submissions. And so that will end on November 15th, and we'll be focusing on getting that feedback back to people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So great
Anything else?
job, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your November 2019, and we will see you very soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Oh, that's right.
Thoughts.
Thoughts.
All right, so we'll do the blurb for the second half. I'll just pick it up with
Oh,
Crossstripe,
yeah. Yeah.
further looking at the pathway in more detail, and then
Yeah.
that's going to kick to you, and you get to do all your
All my follow.
follow.
Okay. You're brilliant, by the way. I don't know how. Like, coulda, shoulda.
God
Coulda,
given.
shoulda been a director.
Stop it.
Okay.
Oh God.
That was scary.
Halloween.
You should keep that.
I might do.